7. That's my lucky number. Okay, we're going to get started because this is going to take a full hour and we're just going to have to get started. So this is how to be an effective media activist, and my name is Wilton Vaught, and the title more or less presumes that I am an effective media activist, and I guess there can be some discussion about that. Sometimes I wonder. I have a couple of blogs shown here. There's Essential Dissent, and that's where I post my videos that I do of progressive events. And then there's Progressive Video, which is sort of an instructional blog where basically a lot of the content that I'll talk about today is in that on that blog. And let's see here. Let's go to the next slide. Y'all know what an anagram is, right? That's where you take one or more words and you rearrange them and make one or more other words, right? For instance, Jim Morrison was Mr. Mojo Rising. You know, he sang that song, Mr. Mojo Rising, right? Right, yeah, that was an anagram for Jim Morrison. So here's an anagram for my name, Out Howling TV. Now, it has nothing to do with being an effective media activist, and it doesn't quite hit you the same way as Mr. Mojo Rising, but it is an interesting coincidence for somebody that produces videos and puts them on public access TV. And by the way, this is the first time I've done this presentation, so I don't know if my sense of humor is going to translate to a PowerPoint presentation, so, you know, be gentle with me. Okay, so I left the clipboard up in that case that's in the back there. So if my helper comes back, there, oh yeah, there you go. There's a clipboard in that black tote back there, and you can pass that around. I have a Google group called Media Activism, and if you put your name and email address on that, I'll sign you up, or I'll send you an invitation, and I'm hoping to start a discussion, and you know, people can help each other out and keep in touch. Okay. So the limitations and purposes of this presentation. Basically, I can't teach all the technical aspects of video production in a single workshop, and for one thing, I don't know all the technical aspects of video production. But even if I did, I couldn't do that, so I have to keep this kind of general. Also, your setup, assuming you have one, is going to be different from mine, your camera and computer, etc. So if I get too specific, I'm going to be talking nonsense to you. So, but I do hope to impart to you a belief that you can become a media activist and point you in the right direction, and that's the purpose of this. But most importantly, and this is undoubtedly the crux of my whole presentation, most importantly, buy my book. Okay? All right, okay, I don't really have a book, but if I did, I know you'd all run right out and buy it. I'm not a video guru, and what I know is far outweighed by what I don't know, but that's the whole point. Almost anyone can become an effective media activist. You just start from where you are and learn as you go. You don't need to be a techno geek. I'm not. You don't need to read a pile of manuals. Nowadays we have online forums for every conceivable piece of hardware or software. You can go on there and ask people, and generally people will be very helpful. If you have somebody local that can help you, well, that's a big plus right there. Now, if you live in a bigger city, you may have a cable company that's required by law to supply a studio, video equipment, and training, all for free or a nominal fee. Some of them are supposed to, and they don't do it. And by the way, the deal is that they get to use the public right-of-way to lay their cables, and in return, they supply public access TV. And they're always trying to weasel out of that, but we keep them in line. So if you don't have access to something like that, let's look at some basic gear. The Binghamton IMC Indie Media Center uses a Sony DCR HC52, which is an entry-level SD 1CCD mini DV camera, and let's break that down. This is the exact same model of camera they use. It's nothing fancy. Okay, as a matter of fact, it's been discontinued, but they have similar models. SD means standard definition. 7. That's my lucky number. Okay, we're going to get started because this is going to take a full hour, and we're just going to have to get started. So this is how to be an effective media activist, and my name is Wilton Vaught, and the title more or less presumes that I am an effective media activist, and I guess there can be some discussion about that. Sometimes I wonder. I have a couple of blogs shown here. There's Essential Dissent, and that's where I post my videos that I do of progressive events. And then there's Progressive Video, which is sort of an instructional blog where basically, a lot of the content that I'll talk about today is in that on that blog. And let's see here. Let's go to the next slide. Y'all know what an anagram is, right? That's where you take one or more words and you rearrange them and make one or more other words, right? For instance, Jim Morrison was Mr. Mojo Rising. You know, he sang that song, Mr. Mojo Rising, right? Right, yeah, that was an anagram for Jim Morrison. So here's an anagram for my name, Out Howling TV. Now, it has nothing to do with being an effective media activist, and it doesn't quite hit you the same way as Mr. Mojo Rising, but it is an interesting coincidence for somebody that produces videos and puts them on public access TV. And by the way, this is the first time I've done this presentation, so I don't know if my sense of humor is going to translate to a PowerPoint presentation, so, you know, be gentle with me. Okay, so I left the clipboard up in that case that's in the back there. So if my helper comes back, there, oh yeah, there you go. There's a clipboard in that black tote back there, and you can pass that around. I have a Google group called Media Activism, and if you put your name and email address on that, I'll sign you up, or I'll send you an invitation, and I'm hoping to start a discussion, and you know, people can help each other out and keep in touch. Okay. So the limitations and purposes of this presentation. Basically, I can't teach all the technical aspects of video production in a single workshop, and for one thing, I don't know all the technical aspects of video production. But even if I did, I couldn't do that, so I have to keep this kind of general. Also, your setup, assuming you have one, is going to be different from mine, your camera and computer, etc. So if I get too specific, I'm going to be talking nonsense to you. So, but I do hope to impart to you a belief that you can become a media activist and point you in the right direction, and that's the purpose of this. But most importantly, and this is undoubtedly the crux of my whole presentation, most importantly, buy my book. Okay? All right, okay, I don't really have a book, but if I did, I know you'd all run right out and buy it. I'm not a video guru, and what I know is far outweighed by what I don't know, but that's the whole point. Almost anyone can become an effective media activist. You just start from where you are and learn as you go. You don't need to be a techno geek. I'm not. You don't need to read a pile of manuals. Nowadays we have online forums for every conceivable piece of hardware or software. You can go on there and ask people, and generally people will be very helpful. If you have somebody local that can help you, well, that's a big plus right there. Now, if you live in a bigger city, you may have a cable company that's required by law to supply a studio, video equipment, and training, all for free or a nominal fee. Some of them are supposed to, and they don't do it. And by the way, the deal is that they get to use the public right-of-way to lay their cables, and in return, they supply public access TV. And they're always trying to weasel out of that, but we keep them in line. So if you don't have access to something like that, let's look at some basic gear. The Binghamton IMC Indie Media Center uses a Sony DCR HC52, which is an entry-level SD 1CCD mini DV camera. And let's break that down. This is the exact same model of camera they use. It's nothing fancy. Okay, as a matter of fact, it's been discontinued, but they have similar models. SD means standard definition. One CCD, a CCD is a charge coupled device. It's basically a chip that receives light and translates it into ones and zeros. And mini DV is the format, and for instance, here's a mini DV tape. That's what the format is named after. So the tape goes in the camera, and voila. So that camera listed for $250. So it's not real expensive to get started on this. There are new formats. There are cameras that record to DVDs and whatever, flash drives, and I'm withholding judgment on those. So mini DV is still a standard. That's what I'm used to using. That's what I use. You can go to like Amazon.com and look at reviews that people have given of the various equipment, and they'll tell you all the things that the manufacturer didn't want to tell you when they wanted you to buy the camera. So you can learn a lot that way. If you're a member of an organization like such as the IMC or something like that, if it's going to be used by several people, it's best that it be a cheapo, because you figure you want a $250 camera to be lost, stolen, abused, whatever, or a $2,500 camera to be lost, stolen, and abused. I don't think I have time for questions, okay? This is going to go real fast. If we do, I'll call on you first. So even if you can afford a more expensive camera, it may be better to buy two cheaper ones because it gives you more flexibility, and we'll get into that later. So standard definition versus high definition. I'm working with standard definition. It's what I'm used to. High definition is the new thing. It's, it's like the widescreen. So HD, high definition, gives you great picture quality, but SD is what we've used for decades, and it's done just fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Most new TVs are widescreen, and that's the native format for HD, so that's a plus for HD. On the other hand, the HD camera will cost more, and everything in your system needs to be optimized if you're going to use HD. Your computer, processors, graphics cards, RAM, etc., and your software, and that's going to be more complicated and higher cost. Also, most of what I do is somebody speaking a lectern like this, and I don't need a wide shot of that. As a matter of fact, I consider that counterproductive. If I have a wide shot of a situation like this, things are going to be in the shot that I don't want to be in there. So I like SD for that. So I think, in my opinion, HD is overkill for public access TV. And if you ask me that in 2 or 3 years, I might have a different answer. I don't know, but that's my feeling right now. So let's look at some basic equipment. We went over the camera. You need a cheapo tripod. And we're talking basic, low-end, entry-level stuff here because I want people to know that you don't have to spend a fortune to get involved in putting things on public access TV or online. You need an audio recorder and a lavalier microphone. A lavalier microphone is just like this one I'm wearing right here. Okay. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm wearing a little microphone here, and that's a lavalier microphone. And we'll go into the audio recorder a little bit later. Let's see here, and that's total about $450 for lower end stuff. Computer, if you have a computer that's no more than 2 years old, almost all of those can handle doing some basic video editing on them. If you don't have such a computer, read the minimum specs for the software, the editing software that you're going to use, and then try to meet or exceed those. It's best that you exceed them. You'll save yourself a lot of frustration if you get the best computer you can afford. And I just went over that. Make sure your graphics card is compatible with your software, and you can look that up online. So if you're using, like I recommend Adobe Premiere software, look online. They'll have a list of what graphics cards are available or are compatible with that, and make sure that your card is, and if not, get one of them. Okay, so you're going to need FireWire capability. FireWire is kind of like USB, same kind of idea. You plug a cord into a port. Okay. Editing software, I recommend, like I said, Adobe Premiere Elements. It works on PC or Mac. I don't know if they have 2 different versions, one for PC and one for Mac, or if one works on both. You can get the basic Elements version of that for $85, very reasonable. You can read reviews online. You don't need to take my word for it. You can get a 30-day fully functional trial version online, and that way you'll know whether it works with your computer or not. And it will supposedly handle high definition, but I have my doubts. I've heard a lot of people complaining about it online. So, but maybe those people didn't know what they were doing. Maybe they just didn't have the right setup. So you got all these toys now. What are you going to do with them? Well, you're going to find something to videotape. And how do you do that? Well, you reach out to local groups, and there's all kinds of them. And this is what I did. I just started telling people, hey, I'll videotape your event and get it out to a larger audience, and they were thrilled in most cases to have me videotaping their event. You can check out local public meetings, demonstrations. They're always fun. What's nice about demonstrations is you don't have to maintain continuity like with a talk. You just put it all together any way you want to, and whatever way makes sense. And they're cultural events. I don't do many of those. I go more for the more radical, the better. That's my motto. So content is king. There has to be a there. You have to be talking about something, and talking about something other than yourself. We'll get into that a little bit later too. So videotape a knowledgeable person speaking on an interesting, newsworthy topic. You know, you can't go wrong with that. There's a lot of fluff on TV, and I think people like, you know, the shows like Survivor and stuff. But I think, you know, there's a hunger out there for something that actually talks about something pertinent to people's lives, and the corporate media are not fulfilling that role. So you can videotape a public event of interest to your community, publicize, inform, educate, motivate, and serve your community. And that's really what this is. It's community service. Some people might think it's more like a community pain in the butt because they don't agree with what you're saying, but it is a community service. So no ego trips. Your show should not be about you. And we're going to go to an example of that right here, of what not to do. Can you hear that? Can anybody hear that? No. Okay. Come on. Okay, I'll just tell you what he's saying. He's saying, this is Politics After Dark, that's the name of the show. It's written by Michael O'Connell, it's based on an idea by Michael O'Connell, starring Michael O'Connell, written by Michael O'Connell, directed by Michael O'Connell, and we're going to have a contest at the end of the presentation to see who can guess this guy's name. Okay, so that's Michael O'Connell, and I know what he's doing is tongue-in-cheek, but it doesn't really come off that way, does it? It's an ego trick. And I guess this next one is not going to work either. I'm not getting sound out of this thing, but I'll just tell you, you know, here's a basic interview. And these two guys, they just there's one camera, no fancy set or anything like that. And the guy on the right is interviewing the guy on the left who's running for office, and they're talking about Hillary Clinton and Chuck Schumer, etc. And they're talking about something that will interest a certain segment of the population. So they're not just talking about themselves. And that's what you got to do, is have something to draw people in. Have you know, like I said, content is king. So let's talk about technical quality, which is also known as production values. Okay, so video is a close-up medium. That's a saying among videographers. And the shot on the left is an example of a bad shot. It's like the guy is swallowed up in the distance. And the one on the right is a good shot. You can tell exactly what you're supposed to be looking at. And we'll use those same two as an example of headroom, bad or good. The guy on the left is just too far down in the shot. So, okay, and the one on the right, his head is almost touching the top of the screen. And here's nose room. Okay, so the one on the left, the bad one, the guy looks like he's bumping into the side of the right side of the frame. You don't want that. You want most of the empty space to be out in front of him. Okay, so that's a little tutorial on shot framing. Okay, and exposure. So we know that person on the right there. No, I think she just like. So that's too bright, and the one on the left is too dark. And then here's an example of a couple examples of properly exposed. Okay, so there's nothing that's really too bright or too dark, and then the flesh tones look more or less like flesh tones. So the way to do that is by your iris setting. It's what opens or closes, and it lets you regulate the amount of light that's going to end up in your camera. A lot of the cameras have an easy cam or handy cam mode where everything's pretty much on auto. That will work a lot of times unless you have a large difference in your shot, like a really bright area and a really dark area. You can't use an auto exposure mode in that. You have to set it manually in that case. Okay, so I recommend that you don't use zooms and pans if at all possible. Zoom is where you appear to be approaching or receding from the subject, and pans is where you're going from side to side. They're really hard to do on entry-level equipment, and as a matter of fact, even on really high-end equipment, they can be iffy. And you know, if you're trying to do several things at once, it's just it doesn't work. And I recommend that you use two cameras and switch back and forth between the two in the editing process, and that's what I do here. Again, you're not going to hear it. Let's see if we can hear it.
They actually didn't have enough refined gas to get their takes.
Okay, well basically this is a panel discussion. I have a wide camera and a close-up camera. This is my close-up camera. Okay, that guy's through talking, so I go over to the wide shot. And meanwhile, with my close-up camera, I'm coming up on that guy, still talking. You can't see what I'm doing because I'm on my other camera. But okay, I got that set, so now in the editing process, I switched to it. And it looks really smooth because you didn't see the motion of the camera, of my close-up camera. All right, so we just get that. look at
Because
that
for
a
us,
little
frankly,
bit more.
financial, what do you invest in, and will you back the right horse in this debate?
Okay, so now that guy's talking, I go back to my wide camera, and I'm repositioning my close-up camera. And once I get that set, I'm gonna, okay, so it just looks real smooth. And I didn't have to show any kind of pan or zoom or anything like that. I didn't have to show how much that camera jiggled while I was moving it. It just looks real professional. Okay, we talked about audio, and you need a field recorder, an audio recorder. And there's another saying amongst videographers that audio is half the picture. And I use these things called a Zoom H2 digital audio recorder. I think they're fantastic devices. And you really need to be a fanatic about audio. If you don't have good audio, if people have to strain to hear what the people are saying in your video, they got these things called remote controls, and they're just gonna click the thing and go on to something else. They're not gonna knock themselves out to listen to your show. Okay, so with these things you can have one like here, recording the audio. You can, if you're in a situation where there's a PA and they have tape out jacks, you can plug directly into the PA and get direct audio from several people all at once. So they're really good. And then later on, you have to sync up the audio with the video, and we'll go into that a little bit too. Okay, here's a lavalier mic. Again, like what I have right here, it plugs into the Zoom H2 and allows you to get good audio. And you don't need a real expensive high-end mic for voice. It just doesn't have the frequency range where you would need that. Okay, get some B-roll. And B-roll is basically alternate shots of could be like an establishing shot, what they call an establishing shot, which is the outside of the building. It could be signage, could be anything that might be of interest to the presentation. Trips, we're going to have audio here?
Hopefully.
I think it's right over here. Let's see. Let's see it. I don't know if that's the right one or not.
That's what I was just about to look at. Just a second. Sorry.
Would it be the headphone one? Okay. I think we're going to have audio here. We have joined the 21st century. Okay, so...
But now we've lost the
oh, that's because it came unplugged. Let's see if we got it back. Okay, so I hope that's going to get a little bit better. Whatever. So another thing that B-roll does is it allows you to kind of what I call CYA, cover your assets. If you make a mistake and you don't have a good shot, you can put that B-roll in there and nobody will know the difference. So for instance,
now, what we're talking about in terms of adopting community rights ordinances is to assert your human and civil rights everywhere, including at the local level, and not surrender them. And if you're going to lose them, because I just want to be as honest as I can be about all of this,
turn that down.
We're not guaranteeing that if you follow in the footsteps of Pittsburgh, who we consulted with the city council there, we drafted their ordinance, and it has...
Okay, enough of that, but you get the idea. What happened there was I had two cameras. I was changing tapes in one, and the other one, my shot was out of focus, unbeknownst to me. So I had no good shot when that was going on. So what I had done was I took some B-roll, I took some signage, and when it came to that point, I just stuck that in there, and then, like I said, it covered my butt. Anyway, your production values just need to be good enough to not distract your audience from the content. Don't get hung up on all the techno toys and think it's all got to be, flashy and whatever. We're focusing on content here. Okay, I just said that. I'm way ahead of myself. Okay, and I didn't have a good graphic to put here, so I thought we might all like looking at the smiley face thing here. Can you still hear me out there?
Yes.
Or have they turned me down? Okay. So after the shoot, you're going to transfer the footage to your computer, and basically that's via the FireWire. You put the tape in your camera, you put the FireWire on the camera, you put the other end in the computer. You have your software set up to receive it. It sends the ones and zeros, it's all digital, ones and zeros, into your software, and voila, you're ready to edit. And then you're going to line up all your assets on the editing timeline, and you can see on the bottom there's basically the top two tracks are video, and there's the corresponding audio underneath it, and basically I just have to, you can see the waveforms of the audio there, and I just line them up until they're in sync, and the basically goes from there. And if I have a separate audio track that I do bring in, I sync it up the same way just by looking at it. Okay. And then you're going to edit out the unwanted portions, and this is this is kind of a stripped down view of what post-production. And then you're going to add titles like this. That's called a lower third title right there. And then add an intro. That's the intro for my show. I public access TV shows in 4 New York State cities, in Binghamton, Ithaca, and Syracuse. And it's all the same stuff. This is a thing I did with Dana. She's talking later on today or tomorrow, I forget. So
we have to
add credits.
at least try to open ourselves and make a commitment to engage in those conversations, and not just be used to our own little patterns and our own little groups.
And the reason I left that little part in there is because it really speaks to my message. We need to get out and talk to other people instead of just talking amongst ourselves. So, and then here's the credits. We've all seen credits. I won't spend much time on this. So basically, that's called a roll. Okay. And I don't use intros or credits online. I feel that everything moves too fast, and you're going to lose your audience if they have to sit through an introduction. People, they just want to get on to the next thing. Nobody will watch the credits either. They'll be on to the next thing. It's just like in the movies when everybody gets up and leaves before they play the credits. Okay, so you can create a project template which contains the elements which are common from one video to the next, so you're not reinventing the wheel all the time. So, for instance, like that intro and credits you saw, I have that basically set up, and I just need to plug in the information that's particular to each project. Okay, so I don't have to start those from scratch. It saves a lot of time. I just call up the template project and I save it under another name, and it saves me a lot of work. Okay, so then you're going to export to the appropriate format and file size for web upload, and that will depend on what website or blog you're sending it to. They will have parameters for what they accept. Then you're going to upload it to your website or blog. Make DVD or VHS copies depending on your cable company's requirements, and make 2 archival copies. Delete the project from the internal drive. These projects are big. An hour of video is about 12 gigabytes, so you get one project on there. It could be 100 gigabytes or so. Memory cost is very inexpensive now. I've been doing this since 2003, and the first external USB drive I bought was 100 gigabytes. It cost $125, so that's $1.25 a gigabyte. The last time I bought external USB drive, it was about 7 cents a gigabyte. So it's very affordable to do that, and you can save your projects in a fully editable form. So if you saw a mistake you made and you want to correct it, or you want to take a little snippet out of it or change it in some way, you can do that. Okay, so the talk is how to be an effective media activist, and how do we measure that? Well, we measure it by the quality of your videos, which consists of 2 things, content and production values, and the other is the size of your audience. Okay, and the 2 factors are linked, because if you don't have quality videos, nobody's going to watch them, and you're not going to have either one of these, no quality and no audience. And a video which has no audience may as well not exist. Okay, and that's what I tell a lot of these groups that I do videos for. They're very happy to have me videotape their group, but they won't lift a finger to help me get the video out. And that's one of the frustrations of this little hobby of mine. But you need to get it out to people. So how do you do that? Well, there's the internet, your website or blog. Like I said, I have a blog called Essential Dissent. And it gives people instant worldwide anytime access to your video. So people can see it from wherever they have the internet. However, few people may seek out and watch your video, and there's a lot going on online, and it's likely to just get lost. And the other thing is, you may be preaching to the choir. The people who seek out and watch your video are likely to be the very people that don't really need to see it. They already know that stuff. They may have some interest in it, but you're not going to make any converts or change anybody's mind. They might become more informed, but to some extent, you're preaching converted That doesn't mean there's no value to it, okay? Blip hosts my videos for free, blip.tv. That's the company I use to upload my videos to. Don't have to pay them anything. They have a lot of production tips in their help section, so you can get a free account there and then go in their help section and find out all kinds of stuff. They do recommend high definition, but whatever, nobody's perfect. And then after uploading the video to Blip, I can access an HTML code for a video player, and that's an example of it right there. And basically, then I go ahead here. Blogger gives me a free blog. Again, I haven't paid a cent for this, for uploading them or hosting them, so I have a free blog. And then I paste that HTML code that I get from Blip, and I put it into my blog on a page there, and when I do that, the video player appears on the page when somebody loads that, okay? And then somebody clicks on that play button, a command is sent to Blip server telling it to send the video over. So, and like I said, it doesn't cost me a dime. Very easy to do. So, the other way to get an audience for your video is via public access TV. And you can reach large numbers of people who might not have otherwise sought out your video. And that's what I really like about public access TV. There's things called push and pull. So pull, the internet is pull. People have to go there and bring it to them, bring it themselves. TV is push. They just sit there and it comes at them. So you get Joe Sixpack who's sitting in his living room, and he wasn't looking for your anti-war demonstration video, but he sees it, and maybe he's going to stick around and watch it. Maybe he'll learn something he didn't know before. But he never would have seen it online because he's just not going to go looking for it. But you're going to get into his living room via public access TV. So you can also find local sponsors in other areas, and you can reach an even larger audience. So like I said, I have a show in Binghamton. That's my home region, so I have a right to have a public access TV show there. But I need sponsors. I need people willing to sign an agreement. And it doesn't cost them anything. They just need to sign a piece of paper saying they want me to have access to a show in their area where they live. So I have a sponsor in Oneonta, and I have one in Ithaca, and I have one in Syracuse. And because of that, well, for instance, Binghamton, I think I reach about 70,000 households, which is, I think is about 160,000 people or something, but I reach 10 times that many people. Potential audience. I know I only reach a small fraction of that, but I reach 10 times what I would reach just staying in Binghamton because I have people who sponsor my show in other areas. Okay, the other thing is, like I said, you're much less likely to be preaching to converted. It's the people that need to hear it that are going to hear it on public access TV. So I think that's much more effective than putting things online, even though I do put them online, and like I said, I think there's value in it. Public access TV is currently the domain of the religious right. You can go on there, and in Binghamton, they're like all over the place. They really seem like every church is getting a public access TV show now. And crackpots and nutcases. And when I first learned about public access TV, I was living in Southern California in the 80s, and I used to call it the Nutcase Channel. I didn't really know what public access TV was. It was a Nutcase Channel, And then it's also the domain of inaudible, poorly shot, poorly produced shows about nothing. And you can see them all over public access TV. And why is that the case? And here you have to listen to my rant for a minute, okay? It's that way because we've let it be that way, okay? We've unnecessarily seeded this ground. We haven't been willing to do the work, okay? And we're satisfied to just talk amongst ourselves. And, I'm not dumping on anybody here. If you're at Greenfest, you're probably more active than the general population, but I'm just saying, we haven't reached out. We've talked to other activists, and we're in this echo chamber, and we need to get out of it, okay? And we suffer from a mixture of defeatism, cynicism, apathy, and burnout. And it's easy to become burnt out. I've done it several times and just stopped doing this totally. But I always come back to it. We'll get into that too. So that's why public access TV is the Nutcase Channel. Okay, so if you would like to be a nutcase too, you can get your own TV show. And you call a cable company and ask to speak to the public access TV coordinator. They will send you their rules and an application. They can usually do that online nowadays. You may need to provide them your first episode when you hand in the application. They want to see that it meets their technical requirements and that it's non-commercial. They might also want to know that there's no pornography in it or something, but actually I don't think they can stop you from showing something like that, even though the rules say you can't, but I mean, we don't want to do that anyway. they're going to want to check it out for various things before they'll show it. Okay, so if your cable company provides a production facility and equipment, they will probably require you to pass a training course. There may be a small fee for this. It might be an annual membership fee. I only know of one that does it. It's Santa Barbara, California. They charge like $85 a year, but they have like a super duper studio. And they cannot charge for airtime. Like I said, the deal is we let them use the public rights of way for their cables, and they provide us with the public access TV and airtime in return. So if you do get a show, you want to shoot for prime time, because the deal is you want to get the largest possible audience. You just need to keep that in mind. So prime time is weeknights from 7 to 11 p.m. And I like to narrow that down to Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, because I figure people are driving, traveling or partying on Mondays and Fridays. And you get the most audience on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. And I say sometime, a start time between 8 and 9:30 is probably best. Try to get a 1-hour show. In a big city, you won't be able to do that because there are so many people clamoring for a slot that you're not going to get a 1-hour show. In Binghamton, you used to be able to get a 2-hour show. There's just not that many people doing it. So it may not be possible in larger cities. You may be required to reapply at regular intervals. And the only one where my sponsor has to do that is if they have to reapply quarterly. The other ones, it just goes until you don't want to do it anymore. Local producers have priority over non-local producers. Then we get into some legal issues here. I advise you not to violate copyright laws. You should produce your own videos and use all your own content, including the music, don't use other people's stuff. Get clearances if possible, and my Google group, there's a link to a release form that I use. Your show must be non-commercial. If the public access TV station determines that it is commercial, they will charge you their regular commercial rate, and you won't like that. There's a thing called the Citizen Media Law Project, which says that New York courts have held that you have the right to videotape open governmental meetings. So they can't stop you from videotaping. There's a related issue there, which is that, okay, so you have the right to videotape it. Do you have the right to broadcast it? That's undetermined. People do it all the time. They don't get sued for it. But you may not actually have the right to do that. And as it says there, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not giving legal advice. Okay, so there's two other ways to find an audience. We went through the internet and public access TV, and there's a thing called pegmedia.org. That's a media interchange site. Basically, the way it works for me is I upload my videos there. I upload my best videos there that I think will appeal to a national audience. And I'm paying close attention to quality. And public access TV stations all over the country can download that and show it in their area. And I've had a couple hundred downloads of my shows via them. So in New England, the Midwest, there's a station out in the Portland area, there's a couple in Florida. They have downloaded my stuff and showed it on TV in their area. And it's really a great website and another way to get a larger audience. And then there's the A-Infos Radio Project, and that was, I think, co-founded by Lynn Gary, who's here this weekend, I believe. And if the audio portion of your video can stand on its own without needing the video, you can upload that to A-Infos Radio Project, and anybody that wants to can then download it, usually as an MP3. And for instance, I had stuff played on college radio stations. I had a couple things, 2 or 3 things played on KPFA, Pacific Radio out in California. So again, another way to get a bigger audience. So how to avoid burnout, and I need to take my own advice here. Try to remain detached from the results of your work. If you think you're going to see the results or change anybody's mind, you need to have a larger time frame, because it's slow going. Find a cause which touches you personally and what you're passionate about, because you're not going to be able to stay away from it if you do that. You're going to want to come back to it after you get a little bit of rest. Remind yourself that you enjoy this work and will miss it if you stop. There is a deep-seated human need to do useful work. and our society doesn't give us many opportunities for that. And this is one of them. Don't take on more than you can realistically handle. I tend to do that all the time. And this is my favorite one: cultivate a conscious air of humility and gratitude. Be thankful for the opportunity to work toward a world imbued with peace and justice. And that really is a privilege. So we just need to bear that in mind. It's easy to lose track of these things, but it's important to do it. So much of the information presented here is available via my media activism blog, Progressive Video. There's also my media activism Google group that we sent the clipboard around for. And on there you can find links to video guidelines for event organizers and for presenters and a release form. And those guidelines documents, basically, I noticed after a while that the same mistakes kept getting made over and over again. And I made kind of a compendium of them. I pared it down because people don't want to read it if it's too long. But the things that keep happening, going wrong over and over, are in there. And basically I sent those around to the organizers and presenters beforehand, and the videos come out appreciably better if they read those and keep those things in mind. So you can access those documents via the group. To summarize, to be an effective media activist, produce high-quality, content-rich videos of interest to a large audience, and then find that audience. That's it in a nutshell. And this is the shameless self-promotion portion of my presentation. I'm looking all the time for more sponsors for my public access TV show. There is no cost for you. There's no ongoing time commitment in most cases. All it would be filling out a form, if they require that. And it's an easy way to help me increase my effectiveness as a media activist. And you can contact me. There's my email or via the Google group. I think the big hang-up for people and why I don't have more sponsors is that they have to sign a piece of paper saying that they're responsible for any laws I break. And some people are confident with it, comfortable with that, and some people are not. I don't blame people for not being, but I've been doing this for quite a while now. I've never gotten anybody in trouble. So, well, that's it. And let's see, there was somebody, the gentleman right there that wanted to ask me a question. What time is everybody got here?
12:11.
What is it?
20 minutes, we have 20 more
Wow, I
minutes.
must have talked fast. I had this timed out for about an hour. Okay, go ahead.
So you prefer a mini DV over a hard disk or a flash drive?
I do. And the thing about the little DVDs, I'm told that they make a lot of noise and it comes through on the audio track. That's what I've heard. The flash drives, maybe that's changed now, but they didn't used to hold enough. They didn't have enough storage capacity for video. Like I said, it's approximately 12 gigabytes for an hour-long, hour of video. So they have to be pretty big. But if that's more available now, there can be an advantage to those. I haven't used those personally, but basically they can speed up the transfer process to the computer because you just drag and drop the file. You just hook up the flash drives to a reader of some sort and copy right over it. So, for instance, the way I'm doing it, if I have an hour-long tape, it takes an hour to transfer that into the computer. But it might take 5 minutes if you're using a flash drive. I don't know. But I can't speak enough about those to know what's going on. Yes, you in the green here.
The Blip TV that you use, does it allow you to put a longer video than, you don't have to break it up into the 5 minutes like the YouTube does? Does that give you, can you put a 15-minute?
Okay, well, I can answer that question, but I need $10 first. Okay. I stole that line from somebody else. I was waiting to spring that on somebody. You can, actually YouTube now allows you to upload longer videos. But yeah, you can put, if you have a free account, it's up to 1 gigabyte, whatever you can fit in 1 gigabyte. And I can do an hour-long thing if you use a lower compression ratio, so it uses less data. You can put an hour-long video up on there, all in one piece. Sometimes I break them up into 2 or 3 pieces. Actually, quite often I do. Questions? Yes?
Will this PowerPoint be available on your blog?
I'd hoped to put this video out, but I forgot to turn on my audio recorder when I started. So I don't know if I'm going to do it because I don't have audio for part of it, but I might just put the PowerPoint up. I tell you what, I'll put the PowerPoint up and put a link on the Google group. I might not have the video portions in there for one thing. I'm disregarding my own advice. I don't own those video portions of the the guy that was saying his name over and over again in that interview. So I'll probably take those out of there and put everything else in. Let's see. How about you there? Yeah, you. Yes.
This is kind of like applies to a lot of different kinds of media and public engagement. But I'm just a little curious about the idea of positionality, and that how you position yourself and the way you present yourself is going to have a lot to do with how people and who responds to what you're saying. And well, I think everybody in this room, like I'm looking at the name of your site and I see the name Essential Dissent. Now I obviously believe dissent is essential. I would be here if I didn't. Right. But I feel like most of the public sees the word dissent and they think, oh, somebody has something they want to criticize about. I'm part of majority society. It's probably going to be something.
There's a lot to criticize.
Probably something I don't want to. Probably something I don't necessarily want to hear. It's going to be negative. It's going to be so. I think that sometimes just the way we position ourselves in the way we engage the public like for instance I think sometimes radical, the key word is meaning of it is getting to the root, which is really the issue, and people value information and getting to the root. But if I'm coming out if somebody's coming at me, like say at my work, and they say, I dissent from what you're doing here in your work, and I want to talk to you about it, I don't get really excited and looking forward to that event.
Let me just say, I used to call my show Reflections, which kind of like has different meanings and stuff. It's kind of cute and all that, but it didn't tell the viewer what the show was about. So I came up with Essential Dissent because I want people to know that's what the show's about. And I'm not going to hide it or make it into anything else by calling it by a different name. So I want people to know it's a show about dissent, and that's what they're going to see.
And I think that media, even when it is important that we talk to one another and communicate among ourselves, and we need our own media outlets. And I don't think we need to be as negative about the idea that we're talking amongst one another as much as we are, because certainly the more conversation we have among two people who already have some perception, and it's true, you don't want to misrepresent yourself either as something that you're not presenting. But I guess I'm just saying that sometimes I think with our positioning, we pre-marginalize ourselves before we've even introduced ourselves to somebody.
I think we marginalize ourselves mostly by not getting our viewpoints out to other people. And I'm not criticizing any dialogue amongst ourselves. I think that's fine, but we need to get out of the echo chamber and get out talking to the general public too, And I think Greens in general have a perception as being elitist, and I think that's amongst the general population, people I've talked to anyway, and I think that's partly because we don't talk to them, or maybe we talk down to them, I don't know. I can't speak for anybody else, but we need to get out and speak their language and get on the TV in their living room and get like, for instance, I videotaped Noam Chomsky in Syracuse a couple months ago, and I played that in all 4 cities. And where else are they going to hear him? And it wouldn't matter if I called it, whatever nightly news or some other name for it. It's still going to be Noam Chomsky on there, and he's still going to be saying things that they may or may not want to hear. But I bet a lot of people watched it because he really grabs you. The woman back there. Yeah, you.
Please,
Yeah.
you had mentioned when there are more than one person using a lavalier plugged into one place on someplace, you had a plug-in for several people. Tell me please how you do several people's audio.
Okay, a lot of mixing boards have what are called tape out jacks. They might have, they may be called record out jacks. And the H2 has a plug-in to it, that will accept, you get a Y cord. It's got what are called RCA jacks on one end, so that plugs into the board. And the other end has a little, what they call mini plug, and that goes into the Zoom H2 digital audio recorder. And basically, if say there was a panel discussion here, and there was 4 people, and they each had a microphone in front of them, and it was coming into the PA. Well, theoretically, if it's all set properly, I can tap out of that PA into my audio recorder and get everything that's coming through those 4 microphones. So it's really neat for that. So I can be wearing it here and just getting audio from me, or if there's a panel discussion, I can get it all, assuming they are all mic'd. I can get the audio. Did that explain it?
Well, it's Greek to me, but it gives me an idea of what to find out more
Yeah.
about.
Okay. Yes.
One of the things that we've found really useful is having quality video footage as a candidate provides you another means of gaining greater media coverage. So when you're talking to media and they're asking, and you're doing an interview or you're trying to get an interview, point them towards your website that has video footage is very effective in terms of gaining wider media.
Okay, you'll have to look at the public access handbook that they provide for whatever area you're in, because they may not allow you to run for office via their TV, and they may not allow you to show a web address. Some of them don't. Like, for instance, Manhattan Network News. I mean, there's so many people that want to get on there and use it to make some money by, kind of hijacking their airtime and putting their commercial message on there. So they will not allow you to have a URL, a web address, in your video. Where I work, it hasn't been an issue. For instance, I don't show the URL to my site anymore. I just put the name of it, and anybody can Google it and find it, so I get around it that way, even if they did have a problem with it, which apparently they don't. But I think there's an equal time thing that might come into play. Like if you show a Green Party candidate and then a Republican came to you and said, I want equal time, you may have to do it. So I would talk to your public access TV coordinator before you do something like that. Some of them also have rules against what they call a call to action. For instance, actually my local one in Binghamton doesn't have that anymore. I think they used to. But basically, if I have like a minute or two left over and I don't want to waste the airtime at the end of my show, there's a local peace vigil that happens at the Federal Building every Monday afternoon in Binghamton. And so I'll just put a thing up there that says, Peace Vigil, Federal Building, Hawley Street, Binghamton, what time, But I won't say, come to the Peace Vigil. That's a call to action. But I can just put out a notice. There's a difference. I can say, this is happening, but I can't say, come to it. If they have a rule against the call to action, like you could say, suppose there's a band that you think is just great. You could say, they're playing at Joe's next weekend. Well, but you can't say, come see them. If they have a rule against the call to action. Again, local rules vary, and you just need to be aware of what the parameters are. Somebody else got that?
Another technical question. I was just wondering what editing software you prefer, because I know there's so many different ones, and some of them you need a book this thick, and it's really overwhelming. And if you just want to do basic editing like you're talking about here for beginning video activists, like what would you suggest what we do?
Okay, in the presentation I recommended Adobe Premiere Elements. It goes for about $85. You can download a fully functional trial version and use it for a month to see if it works, and if you kind of, if you coexist with it well. So, like I said, I think there's a PC version and a Mac version, Adobe Premiere Elements. It's a stripped down thing. I use the Adobe Production Premium CS4, I think they're calling it. The latest one is CS5, I have CS4. And CS means Creative Suite, and it's got a bunch of different stuff in it. It's got all the bells and whistles, and you don't need nearly a tenth to do this kind of stuff. You just need basic thing, and you don't have to spend a lot of money. Do we have any more questions, or do we have time for more questions?
One concern I have is DVDs have been overhyped.
Can you speak up, please?
DVDs have been overhyped as far as its ability to retain data. As a matter of fact, I think a whole lot of videos are going to be lost because they begin to peel the back. A whole lot of video archives is going to be lost. So to what extent do you think that here start transferring video to hard, hard storage?
To a hard drive?
Yeah, to hard drives, because DVDs, and the people handle, especially like if you go to a library, you begin to understand what's going to happen to a lot of video that's stored on DVD. And even if you get DVD and you store it in your home and never use it, sometimes the first time you use it, you begin to find out there's a problem.
Okay. Well, what I do, and what I covered in this, is when I get a project done, I make 2 archival copies on external USB drives. And those contain all the data from those projects. and then I delete it off the internal drive on my computer.
And one more question. On some cameras today, when your video recorded, it seems to only run an hour, and then it will cut off, and you have to reinitialize it. So,
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the tape ran out. I don't know. My tapes last an hour.
okay, I have there are digital cameras that they store data on these SD flash drives.
Okay, yeah.
But it seems, I know in the manual, I finally found in the manual says that if it will only record for an hour, and then you have to.
Again, yeah, that question is just a little bit too specific because I don't know that
Okay.
camera. So we have. Yes, you.
Since you mentioned storage, one thing that seems to be encouraged a lot more now is to store things in the cloud. Do you have any thoughts about that in terms of privacy, security, reliability?
My thought is that it's impractical for video. The files are just way too big.
Yeah.
12 gigabytes, that's still, it takes a long time to do that. It's just for a 1 hour thing. So if you want to store your whole project, and I have projects that can be 200 gigabytes by the time I get them all done. And if I'm not even going to try to upload that. It's just too big.
How do you sync the audio?
Remember the slide I showed you there that's got, it showed the tracks, and you can see the waveforms. So your camera, like I'm recording this right now, and I'm going to have on that tape, there's going to be an audio track and a video track, and they're going to be synced up. They're going to be locked up. And when I bring that into my software, I'm going to see that on the editing timeline, and I can zoom in to the point where I can see that waveform, the audio waveform, a graphical representation of it. And then I bring in my audio from my field recorder. I transfer that over to the computer and bring it into my project and put it on an adjacent audio track. And then I just look until I see a similarity, a pattern in the waveforms. I say, oh yeah, this corresponds to this one on the camera's audio track. And I line them up. Now by definition, that camera's audio track is going to be in sync. So when I then bring in my audio track and sync it up to the camera's audio track, it's in sync. And they do tend to go out a little bit. You got to kind of watch it sometimes. Cut that out. So you got to kind of watch it. Sometimes you have to resync it up. You might have to make an edit and delete a couple frames and slide the audio over a little bit and get it back so it's in sync. But the audio track from your tape is going to be like the control track. That one, by definition, is in sync. And then everything else gets synced up to that. Did you have a question back there, sir?
Yeah, what do you think about the latest Final Cut Pro? It costs $300.
Well, I'm a PC person, so I don't really know much about it. I can tell you, though, Adobe Premiere seems to be better at supporting their customers, I think, than Final Cut Pro. They kind of got orphaned for a while. I forget what the whole issue was, but there were a lot of people that were unhappy with it. I know people that like it and swear by it. And you get your PC people and your Mac people, and they, like never the twain shall meet, and they argue endlessly about what format is better. They're both good.
And how about Avid?
Again, I don't know anything about that because I use Adobe Premiere. I'm very happy with it, and you pay your money and you take your chances, kind of thing. Any other questions? Must be about time to leave anyway, huh?
Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, thank you for the time. I hope you all learned something.